how bad is China glass? I feel like as long as I've been a stoner and as long as I've been collecting glass, I've just been hearing a lot of mixed feelings about China glass. Some people say it's okay. Some people scoff when they hear that you're using China glass. Like, oh, bro, I only smoke the highest quality veganic hash rosin off of my $900 American-made quartz banger and my $27,000 US glass rig. Like, I do it for real. And if that's you, like, more power to you. But, like, the rest of us are real people and, like, we got bills to pay and stuff. So while I do have some more expensive rigs, early on, I would only get cheap rigs. I would never even consider spending more than, like, a few $100s on some glass because, bro, you could just drop it and it breaks. You can have the coolest $30,000 rig and then a second later, you don't have it anymore. Like, it could happen just like that. And some people absolutely hate China glass. They refuse to even be in the same room as it, bro. You pulling up to my sesh with China glass? Get out of here, bro. Like, I've seen people type up 5-paragraph essays on how bad China glass is and how you're not a real stoner if you're using China glass. And, like, we're gonna ignore the fact that they typed it onto their iPhone, which was made in China, and they were probably sitting on a chair that was made in China next to a window in their house that, you know, they imported that glass for the window from China. And you know what? The little drapes over it, those are made in China too. And everything else around you in your house is probably made in China. But let's scoff at the one piece of glass that you're using. I don't know. It's kind of wild. I think there is definitely some bad China glass out there, but there's also a lot of good stuff. Just because something's made in the USA doesn't automatically make it better. Like, you could just start glass blowing and then your first piece you made in the USA, that doesn't make it better than every China piece out there. Some of these people in China are just like, they're working in a warehouse, bro. They're pumping out like 1,000 rigs a day. Like, they've got practice. I will say one of the major differences is on average, US glass, US borosilicate, it's gonna be tougher. Usually it can be made better. I mean, the China is notorious for cutting corners and making cheap stuff. So in China, oftentimes they use cheaper glass or they don't anneal the glass properly and it can end up being weaker. I mean, all glass can break, but if your glass is made weaker out of cheaper materials, and it's not made as well, yeah, it's gonna break easier. But all glass can break, right? Even if it's made better, it could still break from one drop. Now, I have heard some stories of like some places not making the glass rigs properly, and when they shipped them over to the US, they noticed like they didn't have a carb hole or a hole for the bowl or something. They end up having to drill it. I've actually seen drilled bowls firsthand. And one of the issues there is if it's like freshly drilled, it can have glass dust in it. So like you would need to make sure to rinse all that out before you tried to inhale it. Like, don't inhale any glass piece before you rinse it out. Like, even if you just got it, like, don't just put your mouth on it and start sucking. Pause. Damn it. But like, most smoke shops are just filled with China glass. Some of them will carry only US glass and they'll make sure to let you know. Some of them carry like a small percentage, 5 or 10% of it is like their higher end, their top shelf. But the majority of what they sell is imported from China. Now, I have found a lot of the unbranded glass, you might not have as much quality control. There are some brands out there like Tag or MJ Arsenal. You can use the code Cewpins on those, by the way. Where sure, they're importing it, but they have a decent bit of quality control where they're checking all the pieces out and they're not sending you off the bad ones. Where like if somebody just orders a bulk order from DHgate or Alibaba to fill up their head shop, maybe they're not gonna do as much work going through and checking them all out. They could, but the branded glass, usually if it has a logo on it, can be better on average. Now, one thing I do want to talk about is function. A lot of people might assume that the US glass will function better. And like, it can, right? But a lot of times, not really. I have some pieces that are made in China that have like flawless function. It is true that some of the pieces that are made in China were modeled after US pieces. They saw something on Instagram or somebody else saw something on Instagram and sent it to the warehouse and said, hey, can you make this? I'll buy 10,000 units of this glass piece if you can make it. And bro, they really pump these out in the warehouses, right? Like a lot of US glass is made by one blower, one glass blower, but some people have teams where a few people will make one rig. Like somebody's really good with the percolators or something and somebody's really good with like the fuming on the glass. You know what I mean? Like they get a team together. But in China, a lot of it's just like warehouses, bro. They're pumping out thousands of pieces. They might be like really, really good at it because they've done it so many times. So yeah, like not all China glass is made in the same warehouse. There's tons of warehouses, tons of productions. You can find some good stuff. And I have heard this, I'm not quite sure, I do need to look more into this, but one place I used to shop at in Colorado Springs told me that they would ship glass to China, have the people in China make it and send it back. So it was USA glass. The materials were better. Apparently the quality of the borosilicate's higher, and then you also have more options for colors and stuff in the US. So they would ship glass to China. They'd make the pieces in China and send it back, and it would just say USA glass on it or something. It would give off the impression that somebody made it here in the States, but it was USA parts made in China. I don't know. So don't always 100% believe when you see that it's US or USA glass. It could be some weird loophole scenario like that. But on average, unless you're getting a wonky looking rig, you can usually tell by looking at them. I've seen a lot of China glass where they have a weird amount of percolators in there. It doesn't function like it looks like it should. You're like, wow, this piece has 4 percolators, and you try to put any amount of water in it, you can only get one of them to work. There's a lot of cases of that. But if you're just going for like a simple piece, if you're not trying to get anything crazy or elaborate, there's some nice China glass pieces out there. Like a beaker is really hard to mess up. I got an RBR from China. It's so good. The function on it is flawless. The average cost of China glass is cheaper, but I've seen people mark up China glass a lot. Like sometimes you go into a head shop and you're like, why is this piece $400? And you can go on DHgate and you can buy 4 of that same piece for like $17 each or something. Some people go crazy with the markup on it. So you can get the China glass cheaper, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be. But if you're looking for something like really artsy, super custom, you probably could order from China, but you're gonna have better luck finding like a US glass blower, somebody who has a lot of experience, somebody who actually can test your dab rig with dabs, you know what I mean? Somebody who's like, yeah, I've made this before. I'm really good at this. I've actually dabbed out of a similar style rig for years now. So like when they go to make it, they know what they're doing when they make it. They're not just looking at a picture and going, yeah, I made that. So I'll say at the end of the day, not all China glass is bad. If there's a certain type of piece you want to try out and you don't want to drop hundreds and hundreds and hundreds on a US piece, find a cheap China one first. And then if you like it, you want a headier one, get somebody in the States to make you one. Now I have a lot of glass. I don't have a ton of heady rigs, but if you want to see me hit my headiest rig, I'm gonna post a video on my Instagram. It's Friday. I'm gonna get high a little bit early, so go check that video out. It was actually a gift from the homie Dabbin Native, so shout out to him. Follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Cewpins. If you have Amazon Prime, you can link that to a Twitch account and you can support me for free. And if you haven't seen my best ways to get high tier list, what are you doing? Check this video out right here. I talk about the best ways to get high. Have a lit day, my dudes.